Okay, I think we're all ready. So let's get started. Let me check everything is on. Okay, good morning. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the organizing committee, welcome to our special event, the Investment Funds Landscape in the Portuguese-Speaking World. My name is Jonathan, and this is my partner, Rainbow. And it's our honor to guide you through today's insightful discussions and expert sections.
Bom dia, boa tarde e boa noite, senhoras e senhores. Em nome da comissão organizadora, sejam bem-vindos ao nosso evento especial. O panorama dos fundos de investimento no mundo da língua portuguesa. O meu nome é Rainbow e ele é o meu parceiro, Jonathan. É uma honra para nós guiá-los pelas discussões, perspicazes e sessões especializadas de hoje.
Recently, Macau has introduced a modern investment funds law that will enhance its financial sector by aligning with global standards and attracting new fund structures and investors. This marks a milestone in Macau's efforts to diversify its economy and become a competitive fund domicile.
At the same time, Portugal's investment fund industry remains robust, with strong growth driven by property and alternative funds, supported by expanding Macau-Portugal economic ties.
Today, we will explore these developments and opportunities in depth, starting with sections focused on Macau's new fund regulations and Portugal's dynamic market landscape.
To formally open today's event, please join us in welcoming our opening speaker, Mr. Miguel Falcão, Vice Chairman of CFA Society Portugal and Co-President of the Portuguese-Speaking CFA Community Committee.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor to be here today to celebrate such a significant milestone for Macau. The introduction of the new investment fund law represents a landmark in the development of Macau's financial sector. And we must begin by congratulating all the contributing jurists, regulators, public officials, and other professionals for the excellent work they have done. I believe they have given Macau a modern law that is thoughtfully aligned with international standards and that can bring clarity and confidence to fund managers and investors. However, as everyone in the audience understands, a strong law and a favorable tax regime, which Macau also has, are necessary but not sufficient conditions. They will not by themselves create an investment fund industry. Macau now needs to attract investment funds. And for such to happen, decision makers of the investment fund industry will need to find in Macau experienced professionals who can make the process of setting up and managing investment funds as smooth as possible. We are talking about compliance officers, back office and middle office administrators, auditors, accountants, lawyers, and regulators. And if the goal is to have investment funds being managed out of Macau, fund managers, investment research analysts, and risk managers are also needed. CFA is the world's most respected educational program in investment management. And most of the CFA Institute's 200,000 members worldwide work in this field. Investment management is at the core of our DNA. We can help Macau to develop the human capital that it needs. Additionally, we can help Macau's investment fund industry position itself within the Lusophone world. Maybe Macau can become a hub for funds that raise capital in China to invest in the Portuguese-speaking countries and or vice versa. The Portuguese-speaking CFA Committee, which is co-led by CFA Society Brazil and CFA Society Portugal, and unites investment professionals from all Portuguese-speaking countries, is uniquely positioned to help Macau build this bridge. But what can we exactly do? Well, number one, there are already over 100 CFA charter holders in Macau. Anyone who wishes to set up a fund here in Macau should take advantage of this available pool of expertise. I am sure many of such professionals would be delighted to take part in the birth of Macau's investment fund industry. Number two, all major financial centers have thousands of CFA charter holders. If Macau aims to be recognized as a leading financial hub, it must expand its CFA community. And I congratulate CFA Society Hong Kong and Wallace Cheung for extending their activities to Macau. And I also congratulate the fact that there are already 3 universities in Macau affiliated with the CFA. We need to continue this work. Number 3, CFA societies have a deep experience in partnering with universities, financial institutions, investment professionals, and regulators on educational and networking initiatives. We must expand such initiatives in Macau, and part of them should be in connection with the Portuguese-speaking countries. Number 4, many CFA charter holders embrace a culture of giving back. We can engage investment fund industry experts to participate as volunteers in working groups dedicated to discussing best practices and thinking about how to attract investment funds to Macau. Part of those experts should be from the Portuguese-speaking countries. This is a moment of opportunity for Macau. With optimism and the right steps, Macau can grow as a financial hub, and we are ready and available to do our part. Thank you very much, and I hand over back to Rainbow and Jonathan.
Thank you, Mr. Falcão.
Presentation. We will now move to section 2, Macau Investment Funds Law, a lawyer's perspective.
Please welcome Mr. Kelvin Chui, co-managing partner of Lektou and president of the Macau Financial Law Association, who will share on legal compliance, market implications, and future opportunities for managers and investors. Welcome. Thank you.
All right. Great. Let's minimize it. All right. Once again, thank you everyone for coming to Lektou, and it's our pleasure to host this event here. And then my presentation is going to be on like understanding the Macau investment fund law, but from a more practical point of view. And then last time I did this presentation, actually it lasts for like 40 minutes and more, so I'm gonna speak faster. Anyhow, like a small introduction. I'm Kelvin Chui, and previously I was licensed in New York, admitted in New York, and also admitted in Macau and GBA. So I'm like, I call that like Sunday pie. So I can drive all over like GBA. And then so I'm gonna just like take back a little bit first to see like first like where we were and where we are and where we're gonna be in the future. So before 2025, usually the first question that came to us is like, hey, Calvin, so now the new law came out. So did Macau have an investment fund law? Or actually, did Macau have any investment fund management companies? Or if so, or if not, could there be any investment fund in Macau? So I think we all have some notions on those questions. So back to the beginning, like we had a investment fund law. That one was actually from 1999, and as we see, that's 89/99. And just read a little bit on the preface of the law. It's like, in developed societies, investment funds are the main tools for saving and developing the economy. And in fact, investing different valuables in the investment funds portfolio not only diversifies risk and yields returns compared to other investment options, but also attracts investors and thus drives the economy. So actually, like if we take this and put it on today's time, it is still valid. So we're gonna ask the next question, like, so if that's the case, why do we need a new law? Well, and a follow-up question is, if we had the law in 1999, had there been any revision in the past? Because we always like put the blame on the law when the economy couldn't like drive higher. So yes, we had a revision. It happened in 2023. That is the year of the passing of the new Financial System Act of Macau. And what actually that act affect the investment fund law actually in 3 aspects. One is that like the new Financial System Act, it replaced the whole Chapter 2, or actually it makes Chapter 2 of that law to be applicable to the investment fund management companies. Is that a good choice or bad choice? I'll let you guys decide, but I'll say that the Financial System Act is actually designed for credit institutions. So if that chapter is applicable to non-credit institution, imagine what would happen. Actually, it created sort of confusion for the whole industry, especially regarding like, hey, so do we need 3 board members for the board, and how many Macau resident is required for the investment fund management company? And then the whole idea was like, if we directly apply that chapter, then yes, you need 2. One of them must be a Macau resident. Well, you know. And then the second areas that it affected is that like the 2023 changes some wording on the old law. What it changes was it replaced the old line, like permission granted by the governor through an instruction, with authorization granted by the governor through an order of chief executive. What is the problem here? The problem here is that like in the past is granted by the governor through an instruction, but now it's granted by the governor. Do we still have governor in Macau? We don't. We have chief executive. But how could a governor grant a authorization through an order of chief executive? You tell me. So if you had the chance to change the law, why didn't you perfect it? We didn't know. Maybe we like it. We would want to like save a little bit of colonial hint in it. And then the third one is that like for the provision, the third area that it affected was the whole penalty system. So like in terms of the fines, the authority can place on a institution. So that actually take out the whole part from 99 and replace it with the 23. Well, the main idea is just to increase the penalty amount. That's all. All right. So we had it. And we had changes in it, but why do we still need the 25? We had already changed something in 23. Well, still back to the landscape before 25. Besides the 99 law and the amendments made in 2023, still the AMCM issued a guideline on management and operation of private investment funds. The reason why is because we have to know that the 99 law actually it didn't foresee the happening of private investment fund. Actually, the whole idea that even the definition of investment fund in the 99 law, it foresee that it must be a public investment fund. So therefore, the AMCM knew that there's something missing. So what they did is they exercised the authority of the regulator to issue a guideline. So it opened the door saying that like still it's not an unregulated area. It is a regulated area. So therefore, that's how it happens. And then also AMCM issued 2 guide. Remember here, it's 2 guide. It's not guidelines. It's not instruction. Guide doesn't have any legal effect. So it's actually a guide for you to look into and follow. So AMCM like issued 2 guides for setting up public investment fund and private investment fund. All right, so we had laws. Okay, now the second question. Were there any investment fund management companies? The answer is yes. 2022, we had APMP granted the authorization. Yes, 2025, we granted 2 more. One is WI Harper, and the other one is Macau Funway. And for the 2025, both of those ones, actually the current status is authorization granted, but yet to commence business. What that means? That means that like, yes, you get the authorization, the license from the AMCM granted by the chief executive, but you still have yet to incorporate the company. And you still have yet made the special registration with the AMCM. So therefore, you haven't commenced business yet. So that's the case for those 2. And then the last one, Sunjun Capital. In Chinese, it's called Chong Tao. So that one, they had the license, but it's no longer valid. How that happened? Well, they applied for it. It was still in the time of Horace, and then granted. And then they had it for like 6 months. And then a year passed, and then they realized that, oh, the time passed, let's ask for an extension. So that was the very first case that happened to, I think, most type of financial institution. It's like when you get the license, you would actually start to constitute your company right away, but it took them quite some time. And then at the end, after the extension, still, they haven't incorporated their company. So the license expired. All right. Okay, so next question. So could there be an investment fund in Macau? Because we first things is like the new law is 2025. So what that means is like that these 3 were granted under the 99 law. So what it means is that like if there were some investment fund managers that wants to incorporate or get those license, they could have done it in 2000 or 2001. But why they did it only in 2022? We will see that later. And then, but anyhow, during the time before 25, were there any investment funds in Macau? Yes, there were. How many? We categorize them in 3 ways. It's not the way that I categorize it, it's the way that AMCM categorize it. The first category is investment fund authorized to be established in Macau. What it means, look into the next level definition. A special property comprising whatever is acquired through the use of funds raised by offering to the public. So therefore, the 99 law only foresee public funds. All right, so we have one. And then second category, we have local private investment funds that have completed the filing procedure. What that means is that like under the guideline issued by AMCM, they have completed the reporting filing procedure, but still they didn't make it a requirement to ask them to get a authorization to establish a private investment fund. So it's only reporting and filing. We have two up to today. And then the third category is overseas investment funds. Do we have them? Yes, we have. As team, like as team or like as banks, because they are the distribution channels. And how many were there registered with AMCM? 2,000 and more. So yes, we can buy investment fund in our bank, in our bank apps. There are funds, but we only see them only like overseas fund, but registered with AMCM and distributed in Macau only. Those are the 3 categories. All right, let's see some example. First example that I'm going to share is the very first one, A&P funds. That's the only example we have for this type of category, the public investment funds. So the authorization day was May 2nd, 2024, and the launch day was July 25th, 2024, and the fund name is A&P Macau Patakas Money Market Fund. And as you see, all the financial intermediaries are Macau established or incorporate company or branch in Macau. So A&P established in Macau, custodian is BOC Macau branch, and what is really like heartwarming to me is that the governing law is Macau law. That's so precious, no? All right, so that's to say that like, yeah, we can do it. It's not that we like prevent the economy from shining. It's someone just hasn't done it yet. So up to today, 12, not to today, but a couple of days ago, the asset under management is around like 520 million. And then since the establishment day to that day, it has increased to like 10.3594, because the structure and the mode, the way of operation that they do is they don't distribute dividends, but they actually do the rotation. It's keep going. And then so you buy in and out of the units. Okay, so what did they invest in? Well, by the name, you know, it's money market. So what money market means is that the investment objective is to invest in high quality, short-term time deposit, short-term bank deposit, and short-term government bonds or market money instruments. So that's the chart, as we can see. Do you see the name of the banks that we know most of the time? Those are the time deposit that they made with those money invested by public. All right, so yes, you can. We can do it. Okay, so second example, local private investment funds. They have completed filing procedure. The first example done in 2022, November 14th. The name is RMB Bond Private Investment Fund, and the management entity is ICBC Macau Capital Limited. Well, actually, this like the first time that they have raised a fund like this, and then ICBC Macau Capital has also done something groundbreaking in the past, was to assist in the issuance of one of the very first bonds in Macau. And then so they took on that challenge in 2022. And then the custodian is ICBC Asia. So ICBC Asia is a company established in Hong Kong. So now we have a case. Can we not have a custodian overseas from Hong Kong, but not from Macau? Because the first example is from Macau. And then example 3, also a local private investment funds that have completed the filing procedure. Date of filing, May 19th, 2025. Fund name, Monetic Partners Private Investment Fund. Management entity, A&P. Custodian, once again, is not a Macau custodian. How do Macau custodian get business if they keep going out? So this Maybank Securities PTE, we know is a Singaporean one. All right, and example 4. Example 4 is not much of an example. It's more like a categories that I've mentioned, the foreign investment funds. So if we look into the website of AMCM, you can see this a long list, 2,000 plus registered foreign funds. And then the ones that we see, the managers, they are like Fidelity Funds, Franklin Templeton, Hang Seng, HSBC, Invesco, JP Morgan, Barings, and whatever, etc. And then we see the majority of the origin of the management entities are from Luxembourg, Ireland, Hong Kong. Those are the usual suspects. I wouldn't expect from other places. All right. So here is just to get a review. Like if you are a fund manager overseas, and the questions that we have received from our clients is that like, hey Calvin, I don't want to have an investment fund management company in Macau. I just want to get my fund sold. How do I do it? Well, now we have it's Article 45. If it is foreign public funds, you can do it. Just obtain the prior approval from AMCM, and then must be conducted through the sales entities. And who are the sales entities? They are usually the banks. Well, insurance company, maybe if they like structure it like a product. And then what do you need to file with the AMCM? Those are the 8 items. Not to bore you guys, you can read into it. And then secondly, the next question is, besides public investment fund, if it is a foreign private fund, can I still raise it in Macau? Because this is the new article from the new law. Because in the past, there were no foreign investment fund. So you can say that foreign investment fund in Macau, the sales were not regulated. We're not supposed to be regulated because it's not covered by the 99 law. But in the new law, it says that like foreign private fund can also be distributed in Macau, but through non-public means. And then from only to those investors refer to paragraph 4, article 3. Who are they? They are qualified investor. So 专业投資者, professional investor. That's what they are going to define through a circular soon. Still, they haven't defined it yet. And then, but they still have to be distributed through sales entities. Who are they? I just mentioned banks. And then some client, they will ask like, hey, Kelvin, but I don't want to do it. I just want to like come in and out or even have web calls with them. Do I still need to go for a bank? And I was like, don't tell me, don't ask me. Just do, not to just do it, but so just don't ask my question. Just don't ask my opinion, all right? And then the fourth one is that like, no matter you are a public or private foreign funds, after you have sold it in Macau, the AMCM can still require you to like periodically report to them the sales reports and information related to the sales activities. That's how it's going to be played in the future. All right. And how do you register that? I don't think we need that. Okay, right. So we just take like how many minutes? I don't know, 10 minutes to go through the 2025. So now we have 10 more minutes for the future 2025. After 2025, since we have 99 in place, why we need 25? That's like 寄生如何生還, okay? And then the second question is like, what are the main differences? All right. So first, key information that we need to put in our head. 2025 law, yes, it's passed in August 2025, but it doesn't mean that it's effective right now. So if we want to apply to get a license from fund management company, formally, you still need to file it under the 99 law. If you want to register a public fund, formally, you still need to register under the 99 law. But logically and naturally, AMCM wouldn't reply to your license in 1 month. I mean, they would, but it's not a like positive direct answer. They will ask you more questions. So if you want to prepare for it, 2026 is the right way. So January 1st, it will. And even like for the funds that have the investment fund companies that has received their license, the 3 examples that we have seen, they will have a transition period. And also the 2000 of the foreign investment funds registered with AMCM, they will still have a transition period of 1 year until January 1st, 2027. And give a short answer, because I have been getting like questions from clients. It's like, oh, we have registered the public funds already with AMCM. It's being sold by BOC, ISPs or whatever. Do we need to do anything? Well, last time I talked to AMCM, they say like, oh, there's nothing you need to do. It's nothing for transition. It's okay. It's like, all right. Anyway, so this law, did it change anything? Well, I don't. Yeah, there's some changes. Yes. Besides the number, 11/2025. But yes, the law, the scope is it basically say that like it regulates the establishment, operation, and supervision of investment funds and investment fund management companies. So if your friends ask you, does this law has anything to do with private pension funds? No, it has nothing to do with private pension fund. Don't need to read this law. It's regulated by another law. And then what this law aims to do, the 4 goals shared by Rosita. And then secondly, what are the main differences? Well, first, the qualifications and form of incorporations. Rosita mentioned it a little bit, but I'm going to talk deeper on it. Well, first, management entity must be a Macau financial institution, including investment fund management companies, credit institutions, so banks can do it. But can bank do it right away? No, you can't, because it will be viewed as a new business, new financial business under the FSA. So what you need to do if you're a bank, you need to file a application with AMCM to tell them that like we have made this plan, we plan on being a investment fund management company, and this is how we do it, how we gonna perform internal control, how we gonna do the wholesale channel or like the whole fund structuring. You need to file that with AMCM. And if AMCM comes back with no opposition, then yes, you can start your new business. And same thing, if you don't want to become a management entity, if you want to become custodian, the fund custodian, even so that we only see BOC successfully has done it. All right. But if a bank wants to be a custodian, yes, you still need to file with AMCM to say that it's a new line of business that you're starting. All right, that get out of the way. And then also, finance companies can do it. And what does it mean by other licensed entities? Well, other licensed entity is like if you apply your financial license through the other financial institution regime, then yes, you can say that in addition to whatever you wanted to do, you also want to do investment fund management. So you can have like a MCEX, like for instance, we have someone from MCEX. If MCEX want to do investment fund management, yes, you can, because you are already a other financial institution, and all you need to do is just to apply for a new scope of business, and that would be considered as other licensed entities. All right, and then next, the form of company. If you want to become a management entity, you must form a joint stock limited company. What that means is a SA, a public companies in Macau. But what is funny is that this time it made an exception to Macau commercial law, because according to Macau commercial law, a joint stock limited company must require 3 shareholders to start the company. But then here is that it can be started by 1. And the reasoning behind that is it was written in the legislative opinion, the PDC. What it said is because because AMCM has received many inquiries from mainland institutions, and then mainland institutions, since most of them are SOEs have really strict guidance on the level of companies like Z company, Sun company, and whatever company. So it's really difficult for them to say that I come over here, I use my SOE China 1 + 1 Hong Kong company + 1 whatever company to fulfill the requirement of 3. So AMCM just came up with the idea. Yeah, that sounds like a stupid rule. Let's make an exception. We are gonna make an exception. Not to follow. We don't need to follow commercial code. We have our own exception. So how do you use this exception? Is that you need to explain to AMCM what is said in the law is to make a proper explanation of the reasons. Then AMCM can grant you that exception. Is it legal? Yeah, it is, because it's given the right to the AMCM to grant you the exception. So it's law versus law, new law, old law, good law. All right. So so in the future we are not gonna see more companies like 國泰君安一人有限公司啦 okay so right, it's quite funny in Macau. And then and what other differences? The minimum capital required, if you are going to manage only funds, then it's only 300 million. No, I was at 3 million. It's only 3 million. If you want to manage not only fund, you want to manage other assets, then it's 5 million patakis. The reason for that is because AMCM writes in the opinion saying that actually in the world of finance, investment fund management company should be top of the line in terms of asset management. So if you can manage an investment fund, you should also be able to manage other assets. So long as you want to do other asset management, you tell AMCM, and then they're gonna increase your minimum capital requirement. But still, it's only 2 more millions. All right. And then if you ask me the question, what other asset can we manage in Macau? I don't know. You tell me. Maybe we can manage like Subsandai, right? But we don't know. We don't have so much products or like investment done in Macau, so we don't know yet. Well, what other main differences? Okay, another one, custodian. Custodian, this one is a little bit interesting because in the old law, under the 1999 law, it actually requires if you like raise a fund, if you start a fund, financial fund management company in Macau, and also the fund must also have a Macau custodian. It was a requirement, so you could not choose other custodian if you were a public fund. So that's why we see AMP, they chose BOC Macau. But as also we can see the private investment fund, they chose outside because it was not considered under the 1999 law. So it wasn't like prevented by the 1999 law. But then here in the new law, it actually says that like credit institutions, which means banks, or other financial institutions that can engage in custody business in Macau, plus foreign institutions that meet the prudential equivalent regulatory requirements made by AMCM. So any foreign institution can be custodian in Macau. So to me, I don't know. To me, I think like if we want to give a chance to local economy or we give a chance to local custodian, maybe we should go a different direction. Maybe like hold it off for a couple years and then we can release that later. I don't know, but maybe also it could be like a wise choice because why stop them from why stop like fund management company to getting the best in the world if we want to be fair and square. So I think it's like both ways. It could go both ways. All right, but still, there was still one line saying that if the custodian is a foreign financial institution, the custodian agreement shall not exclude the protection and jurisdiction of Macau courts. Well, that gives some comfort because like the reason for that is because usually how that's played is that a fund management company, they start a fund, they will acquire assets. Assets could be all over the world. And then let's imagine they acquire some asset in Macau. And then if they exclude the Macau courts from having jurisdiction, that would be unthinkable. So they actually put in the logical sense here by not preventing that. All right. And then, but then also it is also a custom practice to not to exclude any jurisdiction, because imagine like if you're a Hong Kong fund and then you have like asset all over the world, and then if that asset has something happen to it, you want to go to that jurisdiction and ask for like an injunction. So why exclude when you don't have to? So that's also logical, right? And then so okay, so next aspect, organizational forms of funds. There are 3 types: contractual funds, collective investment companies, and limited partnerships, partnership funds. And how do we correlate them to Hong Kong environment? Well, contractual fund is more or less like unit trust, and then collective investment companies is more like OFC. And then if you look into like a limited partnership, it's actually the same abbreviation of Hong Kong's fund LPF. So that's the correspondence to Hong Kong environment, all right? So we didn't invent those fund structure. We follow the international standards. Well, and then, okay, so this, I wouldn't bother you guys, like contractual fund, no legal personality. But then here, I would like to put some more notes on it. It's like, there are 2 models that can be adopted for contractual funds. One is that assets are held by custodian or trustee in his name and for the benefit of participants. Or it could be set it in a way that like assets are shared by the participants. Well, how that differs? The second one is actually like a shared property idea from legal sense. And then the first idea is more like a mandate plus power of attorney. Or we put it in another way, trustee is trust law. So actually how this 2025 law, the interaction between this 2025 law with the 2022 Macau Trust Law, the AMCM has thought about it and then they put it in here nicely. So in the future, no, in 2026, the investment management, investment fund management company, they can actually put the asset to the custodian by means of a trust deed. So that's how they transfer the ownership to them, and help individually to have like a more separate and liability-free advantage. But is it preferred? I don't know, because from what I heard from Hong Kong is that like this type of trust is not often preferred. Most of the time, they would from the perspective of custodian, they would like to do it in a way that is only their obligations are limited to the ones that are stipulated in the contract, but not for the fiduciary duties that has a long list under the Macau trust, under the regular trust law. So I don't know. So yeah, it's up to your choice. Secondly, collective investment company, the OFC, same, has legal personality, must be in the form of joint stock limited company. The reason for that is because if it is not joint stock limited company, what can it be? The next question is, well, the actual question is, if it is not SA, can it be LTD, LTA, LDA, like the 有限公司? If it is not 股份有限公司, could it be 有限公司? Well, actually, if you are a fund, and then your fund is actually represented by units of equity of your company, and those equity and those units needed to be trade and negotiable under the Macau Commercial Code. Only SA could be done in a SA, and it couldn't be done in a 有限公司, because 有限公司 is the equity is made in the form of quota, and quota is not supposed to be a negotiable instrument. All right, so yeah, the legal sense of it. And then the fund property is the inherent property of the company. All right, and then LPF. Well, LPF is actually very, very new to Macau, because before there were not this regime, but it was more viewed as like a civil partnership, which could be made under Macau civil law partnership. And then same legal personnel, no legal personality, must be composed by GP and LP. And then GP, personal joint and several liability, just like anywhere else in the world. And limited partner is only liable up to the amount of capital they have contributed or promised to subscribe. And then the fund structure, we have standalone fund, umbrella fund, master feeder fund, fund of funds, all you want funds. We didn't create a new type of funds. It's the same one that we have in Hong Kong and in the world. And then operating modes, open-ended, closed-ended, and yeah, that could be hybrid. We cannot get more creative than that. It's like, it's not 1, it's not 2, it's 1.5. All right, and then the underlying investment assets. The underlying investment asset will only give a different name to the investment fund. Like, let's say if you're going to invest in securities, it's securities investment fund. It's real estate. But then the ones that we hear, like PE funds, venture capital fund, commodity fund, whatever fund, those are categorized under alternative investment funds. It doesn't make any difference. And then regulatory overlay. Well, yes, the AMCM by circular, they say that in the law, besides those funds, AMCM can make new other name fund by circular. And then just by specifying the eligible asset class and investment policy or whatever. All right. And then public fund, private fund. Well, public fund is raised by public offering, and then subject to and then the main difference is public fund needs prior authorization, and it has a stricter requirements on disclosure, investment limits, and ongoing compliance. And then private funds, private fund doesn't require follow the old days regulations. Doesn't require authorization. All you need is that submit a filing at least 15 business days before fundraising. So if before you fundraise, you submit the application to AMCM. Supposedly, if they ask you for more documents, you give them more documents, but it doesn't count into the 15 days. So only if they have received the full set of documents, they will start the count of 15 days. So would that be a simple filing, or would it be treated as like a quasi authorization? We don't know yet. All right. So and then in these five lines actually outlines all type of funds that you can think of: contractual, public; corporate, public; contractual, private; corporate, private. LPF is only available for private investment funds. All right, and then cross-border marketing and sales of local funds. So the very first section that we have talked about is sales and marketing of foreign funds. So now we go to like the funds that if we establish in Macau, can we sell to Hong Kong, GBA or whatever, or the GBA wealth management scheme? Yes, you can. Prior notification only. All right, same thing, no difference. And then transition time 1 year. What I would recommend you do. All right, and then this one is actually to tell people if you want to establish an investment fund management company in Macau. I think we have gone over that. Joint stock company, single shareholder available, authorization is required, and how long it takes for the application process. Well, actually, I would say like no less than 6 months. Usually, that's the right time framework, because 6 months is the time for AMCM to go back and forth with the applicant, and also if the applicant is from mainland China or has any mainland China elements, then AMCM has a MOU with the People's Bank of China and also the Zengam, Bogam, whatever, and they will check with them. So 6 months back and forth. And then actually recently we just assist a client to acquire the license completely. So it was a successful case. And then there are many more managers coming. And what else? Oh, something interesting, just so you guys know, is that for the administrative body, the 行政管理機關, it must be a board of directors, in the form of board of directors with 3 qualified members, and 2 of them have to be habitually residing in Macau. How do we understand the word habitually residing? That's not the same word, or the same word for Macau permanent or Macau non-permanent resident. You don't have to have the resident card. You just have to habitually residing. And to put it more precisely, so long you have the qualification or the permission to be able to habitually reside in Macau, that's also okay. The reason for that, well, the GBA, we are merging into them, so you can live in Zhuhai. Maybe. Don't take my word for it. Don't take my word for it until like the DSAL, like the Labor Department, doesn't cancel your blue card.
Or in Hong Kong.
Oh, Hong Kong is the same case. Yeah. And then supervisory board, yeah, you can now it's explicit. It could be a single supervisor or it could be a 3-person made supervisory board, but one of them has to be a Macau CPA. And then for only the investment function personnel, it must fulfill this requirement: appropriate qualification, competence, more than 3 years of experience at AMCM or equivalent supervised institutions. So whoever will take on the investment function personnel must fulfill this. But I think you should, only 3 years, right? And then for shareholders, directors, key personnel, stay with the same old idea, like fit and proper. And then in terms of the actual business of an investment fund management company that can do, well, because it's natural, investment fund management company must be able to manage investment fund. But what else? Yes, there else. The core business allowed under the 2025 law is manage 1 or more funds. I like it, because why do you need to specify 1 or more funds? All right. Second, distribute self-fund units. This is quite interesting. Distribute and self-funds unit established by your own fund management company, or distribute and sell fund units of other fund or funds that are established by other fund management companies. I don't know. Rosita will know. And then 3, provide investment advisory service. That's okay. Yeah, that's okay. And then the second line is like maybe authorized to conduct other property asset management business, is that you have to apply for this. And then auxiliary activities. These ones, you don't need to apply additionally. This one, once you get the license, you can do it already. Like liquidity management of idle cash, risk management, hedging for funds or client asset, FX transaction necessary, short-term interbank market investment research, fund valuation, VC funds. You can do all those. But there's a rule. It says that like, no matter what you do, under the auxiliary activities, you should not make it as your main business. That's what the law says. So you once you get the license, they want you to like at least manage one or more funds, but you cannot just only do like foreign exchange or like you cannot just do like fund valuation. It's like those will be really auxiliary services, okay? And then when you apply for the license, they will ask you many questions on like how do you do internal controls, conflict management, and then what type of specialities you're gonna go into, and then so you need to explain to AMCM, and then the key control areas are the ones that you need to explain to AMCM, like organization structure, delegation, oversight, risk management, compliance monitoring, valuation, governance, and business continuity plan, and then segregation of duties, whatever. And then thank you very much. These are my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Kelvin Chui, for that insightful perspective on Macau's investment funds law from the legal standpoint. We've just finished 2 amazing sessions, and I believe there's a lot of ideas or questions that we want to raise.
So we'll now have a Q&A section regarding what we discussed just now. Feel free to grab the chance and raise your questions. For our virtual attendees, you may submit your questions through the chat function as well. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Any questions? Let me check on the chat box.
Oh,
Yeah.
this is
AI guidelines.
standard stuff.
Yes.
I think this is not the question.
Maybe I explained very well,
Yeah.
and no one has any.
It's a really detailed presentation.
Oh.
We got one here, right? We got one here.
Yeah. So first of all, thanks for Rosita and Kelvin very comprehensive introductions. And just very quick one. So like I think we have a lot of like new initiative from Macau, but at the same time, because Hong Kong is also the very vibrant kind of financial centers, how should we see these 2 cities in cooperate together under this new law? Or put it the other way, will there be any particular fund in Hong Kong that will be benefit from this new law that they should come to visit Macau and build a new business?
Well, actually, what I see is that the AMP, they made a very good example of like exploring something that is only unique in Macau. Because what they did is like first the fund is the currency of the fund is patakas, it's Macau currency. And then the whole idea, I have listened to Bernardo Alves, good friends, and then he just like and then his explanation is like, well, imagine like in a public fund world, a monetary fund world, like Macau people, we receive our money, our salaries in patakas. So what do we store that? What do we use them for? We go day in and out to purchase like groceries. But other than that, you cannot invest those money in Hong Kong Stock Exchange. You can do it, but you need to convert that into Hong Kong dollar first, and then buy it in your account, your app's account. But then, if you don't want to convert it, what can you do with it? Can you do it with something like more direct? Yes, you can. You can do it in a bank deposit. That is safe as well. You can like make a time deposit, but he says like, well, what about we can make something that will give a better return? So that's his idea, to mix with like a bulk amount of money gathered from everyone, get a better interest rate from bank, and then mix it with some US Treasury bonds, and then elevate it to a level that people will feel safe to put in at the minimum amount of 5,000 patakas. And then you just put it in, and then the projected return in the beginning, in the very first beginning, the projected return was around like 4.5, 4.6, but nowadays it's like 2.8. But that's still like 2.8 is still higher than many like time deposit in bank right now. So like what I think is like he made a very good solution. Like he proposed a very good solution for a simple problem. And the problem, I think, is shared by the whole Macau. But yes, Macau only has 600,000 people. But our deposit is actually very high per capita. So I think like it is now a very good case for like even Hong Kong fund manager to use their intelligence and to see like, well, if you have this piece of beef, pork. No, pork. It's not good. Okay. This piece of like wealth, how it's gonna attack it. It's like an intelligent game. We'll see. Yeah,
And also a lot of Portuguese-speaking countries
that's true.
opportunity as well.
Yeah.
So I suppose we don't have any further questions.
Yep.
No.
Miguel,
Miguel, do you have any questions? So maybe we can
proceed.
We shift focus to the international stage with Section 3, Investment Fund Industries in Brazil, Portugal, and Angola. For this session, this would be done through live streaming.
So once again, to set the stage for our live stream segment, please welcome back Mr. Miguel Falcão, CFA, for his introduction.
Moreover, I would like to extend our introduction to today's panel's moderator, Mr. Brendon Mascarenhas, CFA, CFP at Mascarenhas Wealth, and member of the CFALP, and also our speakers, Senior Analyst at BFA Asset Management and member of CFALP, Pascoa Faria, partner at Yazbek Advogados, and member of CFALP, Lucas Santanna, CFA, portfolio manager at BPI Asset Management, Mr. Luís Alvarenga, CFA. The panel will discuss regional fund industry overviews and investment opportunities across these key Lusophone markets.
Hello, everyone again. Thank you for that. First of all, I want to congratulate everyone for the AMCM representative and Calvin for such insightful presentations. And I would say that Calvin actually is fluent in Portuguese. He's shy, prefers to speak in English, but Calvin is fluent in Portuguese. So whoever from the Portuguese-speaking countries wishes to work in investment funds in Macau, I think Calvin is a great contact.
CFO temporarily removed.
Oh, there's a sound here. Okay, so I'm just gonna take a couple of minutes. I just want to explain why we chose these three countries: Brazil, Portugal, Angola, since there are 9 Portuguese-speaking countries. And the fact is, it's pretty simple. The other 6 countries don't have or barely have an investment fund industry. So they have public pension funds that are run by the state. Some of them have sovereign wealth funds, and some of them are very good sovereign wealth funds. For example, Timor-Leste has a very large sovereign wealth fund in comparison to the GDP that follows very good governance practices. It's very well known for the governance quality. And Mozambique is now starting a fund with very similar governance structure, and the Mozambique sovereign wealth fund can become very large due to the gas fields. But regarding the private investment fund industry, there's not much in the other 6 countries. The only exception there is in Mozambique, which already has something. There are some there's some pension funds that are private and can be subscribed by individuals. So that being said, let me. Oh, one more thing. I think Pascoa is facing difficulties with the camera. Hopefully, she can join with the audio, but I don't think she'll be able to turn on the camera. So let me hand over to Brendon. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much. Good evening. In my country, it's a good evening. I hope all of you all are fine. So I will be taking forward. I'll just be asking a few questions to each one of you, and I hope you all are ready. So the first question goes to Luis. It's a series of questions, but I'm just going to ask it all at once, and then you can answer it. All right. So Luis, your question is: how has the investment industry evolved in Portugal over the years, and how do you see it today? What are the types of funds that exist in Portugal? And specifically, can you talk about the golden visa funds, which have been growing very strongly? Over to you, Luis.
Well, good evening. I suppose here is still around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. People are going out for lunch, but I guess for you guys is good evening. Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and giving you this overview. There's a lot to dig in. in those few questions I'll try to address. Let me just give you some overview on how things have evolved here in Portugal. Like Portugal is an old country, but the asset management industry is not nearly as old as the country. The first few funds were launched in the late 1980s of the past century, and most of them were linked to financing from the European Union. I think that a key moment for the asset management industry was when the securities regulator was created back in 1991. So there was proper law, there was proper oversight, and that was a big boom for growth. And back then, the business model of the asset management industry, so I'm talking now about the 1990s, was basically to give access to retail clients to international markets. That mostly meant Europe and US, either in bonds or in equity, and to offer tax efficient products for mostly for retirement. So that was basically the business model back then, and I mean, fees were obviously much higher than they are today. Now, in the late 90s, something happened, and I think this is something that is common to other countries. So the asset managers, international asset managers, starting entering the Portuguese savings market. So you had back then the normal household names that I'm sure you guys know. So the Fidelities, the Schroders, those the BNP. So those big players in the asset management market started entering the Portuguese market, and it's understandable why. So Portugal was growing back then. It was had a high savings rate, and there was appetite for this kind of products. For the market, it was also great because there was a very big broadening out of the offering, and so it was, I guess, a win-win. But competition increased significantly back then. I would say that the asset management industry was growing through most of the 2000s, but then it was very severely hit by the GFC, so the great financial crisis. And I guess it was not only Portugal that was impacted by that very big financial event, but after that we had our own problems in terms of the European debt crisis. So that was like a second hit we had in the industry, and that was obviously troublesome for the industry because performance was not very good, because bond, equity market, the real estate market was not performing very well. The banks were not performing very well as well. They were having to deal with their own problems. So I guess that was perhaps one difficult moment we had to face. But since around 2015, 2014, Portugal has been a case study where the economy has significantly come back, but also the asset management market has grown very strongly. I would say that the market nowadays is very much breakdown between domestic asset managers and international asset managers. And I mean, the domestic players, they had to find their own niche to be able to compete with these big international players. So I guess that's the key. The domestic market had to focus on a few niche opportunities that could be profitable enough. And I would say that the low risk part of the market, multi-asset class products and tax efficient products were probably where the industry was focusing, and that comes back because Portugal is a fairly conservative market in terms of risk taking. So it was a natural place for the domestic asset managers to play. The lower risk of the market, and so namely bonds and the low exposure to equity, and also tax efficient products. Now, I mentioned a little bit in terms of the culture in Portugal being of taking perhaps not that much risk in the investments, but I would like to highlight that there is, the culture is significantly changing. You are seeing a growing appetite for more risk in terms of funds. The equity funds are growing from a low base, but they're growing. Private equity funds are growing. Real estate funds are growing, and that's an important change in tone. Now, Brendon, you mentioned the golden visas, and I think that's an important part of the growth in the market. To give you some sense, the funds that are eligible for golden visas, they were somewhat around 200-300 million around 10 years ago. They are now well over 1 billion. They're approaching 1 billion and a half. So that's a place where there has been a significant interest by the domestic clients that can also invest, but a lot has come from international clients. Here in terms of the requirements, they have been changing throughout the years. They have been narrowing for you to have access to the golden visas in Portugal. But what basically nowadays you have to do is to buy an investment fund that invests in Portuguese focused assets, so equities and bonds. That's really the kinds of funds that will give you access to the golden visa. So what does it mean having a golden visa? So in very simple terms, you can live, you can work, you can study in Portugal, you can circulate freely in Europe, and you can apply for Portuguese citizenship after 5 years. And I think the terms are very attractive, and that's why you are seeing such a significant growth. So you only need to invest 500k in an investment fund with eligible characteristics, so focused in Portuguese assets, which is, I would say, a fairly low amount. And you have to obviously stay invested in this investment fund for 5 years. You only have to stay in the country 7 days a year during those 5 years. So you can basically stay very, very little time in Portugal and still be on a fast track to apply to citizenship. What I would say as well, just to wrap up this part, is that investing in the Portuguese stock market has been very, very attractive. Has had a great performance over the last 5 years. You've seen a performance of over 18% in the Portuguese stock market, quite higher than the European average. So, the golden visas have been a great place to give you access to Portuguese citizenship and also have a very profitable investment. I think that this is one of the great success stories that we've had in the last 5 to 10 years here in the asset management industry.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Hopefully someday I also can consider the golden visa. Thank you for talking about the low risk taking to now a higher risk taking of the Portuguese people, and for taking us right from 1991 to today. All right. The next question is for Pascoa. So Pascoa, can I ask you the same question, but this time about Angola? How has the investment fund industry evolved in Angola over the past years, and how do you see it today?
Okay. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, and we can see you also. Thank you.
Wonderful. It's working. Thanks, Miguel. Okay. Thank you once again for the invitation provided, the invitation given. Regarding our own market, I like to talk about it in building blocks, in a sense that different from other markets, where you start with the market being developed and then having regulation and having regulator being developed and formed. In Angola, we started first with a regulated entity being developed, which is called the Capital Market Commission. And then after that, we have a series of regulations being developed. Then we have our stock exchange, which was developed in 2014, Bodiva, which allowed the creation of different segments in terms of issuers. In case there were issuance focused on corporate bonds, there was a different market for that. Issuance focused on equities, there was a different market for that. Specifically for BFA asset management, one of the markets we were mainly focused on was mainly for the mutual funds, where it wasn't necessarily traded as a ETF, but it was traded on the stock exchange. The other building block was the development of asset management, which was basically a strategy that banks used to leverage the large portfolio that they had of public debt. So BFA asset management actually came from, it's part of a larger financial group, which is the BFA group, that was created with the purpose of leveraging and creating a complementary product. Because in our market, most of our clients were mainly familiarized with term deposit. There was not a different instrument besides bonds and other instruments that could be seen as a complementary product for them. So having the asset management institution being developed created or opened the market for new type of instruments. And BFA Asset Management has been leveraging that opportunity in a sense of that. First, we've created some of our first funds, which were BFA Oportunidades. We've launched more than 20 BFA Oportunidades by understanding mainly the behavior of our consumers. Most of our clients were mainly focused on short-term instruments. So that condition the creation of the product to be customized to our clients' need. And then we have other institutions that have been developed as well from this growth of the market. Mainly, we've seen first the banks were doing the intermediation, but then there was a shift around 2022 to 2023, 2024, where the banks stopped doing the intermediation, and that task was literally passed to deal brokers, or broker-dealer that we have today. And this number has been growing increasingly, they have been facilitating the interaction between investors and the instruments available in the market, whether they're funds, whether they are any other type of instruments that are available. So our market has been in an evolving stage, if we can say that. There is a lot of opportunity for us as a country, as a market. And I believe that another stage that we are taking on now, it's previously, 10 years ago, we had less than 100 entities registered. Today, we have more than 100 entities. And that goes from funds, they go from auditors, they go from deal brokers to asset management companies. And even now we have the alternative funds, which was not seen in the past, let's say, 5 to 7 years, pretty much, if we can say that. Today we have more private credit fund or more alternative funds. And BFA Asset Management has actually one private credit fund that has launched last year. And this year, actually last week, we did our first deployment. So this is just a proof that our market is growing and there is opportunities in a lot of different spectrum of our market. So that would be my take on that for now.
All right. Thank you so much for that. So Angola's market is 11 years old. That's something new that for me. So both of you all have spoken about regulations, and we are very fortunate that we have a lawyer among us. So Lucas, he's a lawyer. So question for you, Lucas. Can you answer the same question but about Brazil? And of course, since you're a lawyer and a CFA, can you also give us a brief overview of the Brazilian investment fund and also the law and regulations? Over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Brendon. Good morning to everyone. Here in Brazil, we're still starting the day. I'd like to thank Miguel for the invitation, and I hope to be able to give everyone a good overview of the Brazilian funds industry. The Brazilian investment funds industry is really a product of the last 30 years, and it has grown enormously after the country's economic stabilization in the 1990s. Just to give everyone some context, until then, Brazil did not really have a well-functioning economy or financial system. We had one of the greatest inflation rates in the world, and we were extremely dependent on foreign capital. But the funds industry took advantage of Brazil's economic growth since then. And to give you a sense of its size, we're talking about an industry of around 1.8 trillion, I mean trillion, not billion, 1.8 trillion US dollars as of September 2025. So it's a huge industry here in Brazil. And obviously, there have been many changes over this period. But what we've seen more recently is a growing diversification across asset classes, with increasing allocations from these vehicles in private equity, private credit, and real assets. We've also seen a pursuit of investment opportunities abroad. Brazil is traditionally an emerging economy and a country with a low savings rate. So it has historically sought to attract foreign capital and to restrict domestic investment abroad. This, however, is changing, and investing abroad has now become much easier. So we're seeing a growing number of Brazilian investment funds seeking opportunities abroad to diversify away from Brazilian volatility. In this context, the use of investment funds has now become the preferred way for Brazilians to get exposure to foreign assets due to benefits of scale and manager expertise. We are also seeing an increase of individuals investing in the securities markets through investment funds, especially through real estate investment trusts, which are very popular in Brazil. We have now more than 500 rights listed in the Brazilian Stock Exchange. That is more than companies listed in our Brazilian Stock Exchange. Speaking in terms of legal issues, as Brendon mentioned, I guess the size of the industry also illustrates well how solid our legal and regulatory framework is when it comes to funds. From a legal standpoint, investment funds in Brazil are pass-through entities which do not have a legal personality of their own. Unlike what we see in other jurisdictions, they're not corporations, they're not corporate entities, although they are separate legal entities. And that has some benefits. For instance, gains in income are not taxed at the funds level. They're only taxed at the investors level. As a result, at least in Brazil, investment funds are somewhat more tax efficient than corporate structures. And this has really helped consolidate its use in Brazil, especially for wealth planning purposes. Also, from a regulatory standpoint, all funds in Brazil are regulated by the Brazilian Securities and Exchange Commission, the CVM, as we call it. But the extent of the regulation really depends on the investor's profile, whether the fund targets retail investors or a more experienced audience. I would also say that our rules are mostly aligned with foreign and international ones. We have, for instance, limited liability, different classes of shares, open-ended and closed-ended funds, hybrid funds, a separation between fund management and fund administration, and certainly room to accommodate more complex and tailor-made arrangements. And finally, more recently, we had a comprehensive regulatory reform under which now all compensation paid to managers, administrators, and distributors of retail funds have to be disclosed to the market as a whole, and not only to the specific investors in a certain fund. So there's full transparency around fees, and the Brazilian self-regulator is working on a central database that will make comparison across funds much easier. So we really expect this to increase competition in the market. So that's a brief overview, I would say, on the Brazilian funds market.
Thank you so much. Here in India, REITs are still in their early stages. We have very few funds. That is new for me that you all have so many REITs. And 1.8 trillion USD, that's very interesting. So I will ask you another question based on your market. So Lucas, the next question for you is, we know that Brazil investment funds industry is very large and sophisticated, like the 1.8 trillion. What else can you tell about it? And what types of funds exist? Which are the main types of segments in terms of size? And the final thing is, what are some of the main players?
Right. So as I said, we're talking about an industry of around 1.8 trillion US dollars of assets under management, so it's a lot. The industry has more than 41 million investment accounts distributed across 32,000 investment funds, which are in turn managed by more than 1,000 asset managers. So these are huge numbers, obviously impressive figures, but we can explain and break them down a bit more. But before doing so, I think it's important to explain that the Brazilian funds industry serves mostly Brazilian investors and foreign investors investing in Brazil. It is different in this respect from, let's say, Luxembourg's fund industry or the Irish or offshore industries like Cayman or the BVI. It's not a platform or jurisdiction from where foreigners invest globally. Yes, there are investments from Brazilian funds into other countries, but this is mostly from Brazilian investors seeking to diversify away from Brazil. We're not properly an international hub. So in that respect, I would say that our industry is certainly different from what the Macau funds industry shall become, probably. Anyway, going back to those figures, almost 42% of those asset and AUM figure that I mentioned is currently allocated in investment funds that can only invest in fixed income. This includes money market funds and funds buying public and private debt of all kinds. Unfortunately, I would say Brazil currently has the second highest real interest rate in the world. Certainly not good for the economic growth, but does attract a lot of capital, both domestic and foreign, to this asset class. So I would say almost half of it is invested in fixed income. Private equity funds amount to roughly another 10% of those assets under management, showing the strength of this asset class across the industry. It's now very well established and consolidated. Private pension investment funds amount to another 16% of those assets under management. And speaking of small figures, interestingly, unlike the international trend, ETFs are only a tiny fraction of the Brazilian funds industry, only 0.6% of the total AUM. This appears to support a view that one can beat the market in Brazil through active management, a view that markets are not entirely efficient and therefore managers can generate alpha through research and skill, at least in the Brazilian market. It's a small stake, but it's also growing rapidly. And while there's no public data on it, I suspect that most of these ETFs, the existing ones, offer exposure to foreign indices rather than national ones. In terms of industry players, the industry has a lot of asset managers, as I mentioned, more than 1,000, but it's also heavily concentrated. The managers with more AUM all belong to Brazilian conglomerates. So these are domestic players. The 5 top managers combined, all of which belong to a different Brazilian financial group, have almost 50% of the total industry's AUM. So that's a lot. Among the top 20 asset managers, only 2 belong to a foreign group, Santander and BNP. And 7 can be considered truly independent in the sense that they do not belong to a financial conglomerate. Although the independent ones are all also domestic, not foreign ones. Despite such concentration, as I said, we do have a number of high number of asset managers, 1,045 to be more precise. Regulatory barriers to entry are not very high. That's why we have such a high number of asset managers. But the median asset under management is around $80 million. So we do have a lot of small players, Brendon.
Thank you. Thank you so much. While you were talking, I'm correlating Brazil with India. India is also the same. Indians investing in India. ETFs are slowly growing. I would like to know more about Macau. So, Pascoa, what about the investment funds? What investment funds does BFA offer? Can you describe some of its main funds? Over to you, Pascoa.
Yeah, sure. So currently we have open-ended funds, we have closed-ended funds, and we have one alternative fund The open-ended funds we've closed, but they are mainly focused on public debt. Closed-ended funds mainly focus on public debt. Our open-ended fund, which is Rendimento Flex, BFA Rendimento Flex, provides a range of instruments where our clients are exposed to a variety of instruments available in our market, whether they are bonds, whether they are equities, all of those instruments that we have currently. We also have, we've launched recently our BFA Emerging Income Fund, which the goal is to have exposure not only to Angola, but also to other emerging markets, hence the name. So those are some of the three funds that we have. But then we have the alternative, which we are still in the process of fundraising, but we were able to, this fund is specifically for institutional investors and high net worth individual, where we are specifically targeting to $20 million, different from markets that are in trillion like Brazil. We are still growing. This is our pilot fund, and we've been, I wouldn't say lucky because that's an understatement. We've been working towards making sure that those pilots go well, and so that we can attract more investors to our local market. So that has been our trajectory.
Thank you so much. Exciting times ahead with the pilot. All right, so the next question to Luis. You know the trend. Okay, so Luis, can I ask you the same question, but about BPI?
Sure. Listen, just one thing I think it's interesting to comment with you is that one of the biggest advantages of Portuguese domiciled funds is that when you have one of these funds, it can have a European passport. So Portuguese domiciled funds have a European passport, and that means that you just need to register this fund that is domiciled in Portugal with a local regulator. So let's imagine Germany or Greece or I don't know, France, and you can sell, and that's a very straightforward process, and you can sell that same fund across the European Union, which is obviously a very big savings market. So that's one of the big advantages that we have here. Obviously, to sell within the European Union and across the world, there are two big platforms. They've already been mentioned, Ireland and Luxembourg. So those are the big platforms. But a Portuguese fund can be sold across the European Union in a very simple way. I would say that the Portuguese domestic markets is nowadays for the local players is mostly focused in three kind of funds. So conservative short-term applications, investments. So again, it's an important part of the Portuguese market with multi-asset class products, and this is a significant chunk of the market. By some accounts, it reaches over 20 billion, and they're very popular nowadays because we have regulations where clients have to be profiled in terms of risk, and when banks sell these multi-asset class portfolios, they can exactly target the risk profile of the client with the offering, the investment offering that they are trying to push for that same client. So this is an asset class that probably was not that relevant 20 years ago. Nowadays, it's very significant. And lastly, I've already mentioned PPRs. It's a very popular investment product in Portugal that is sold under very different formats. So you can buy it through a fund, you can buy it through an insurance. So it's a very popular product with AUMs of around 20 billion, 25 billion. And I mean, the big plus here is that if you are a long-term investor, you can have a very significant discount in your tax when you redeem. I mentioned these three. I would also add that real estate funds have grown very significantly, particularly over the last 10 years. Portuguese real estate has done extremely well across segments, and assets have grown to reach over 20 billion. So I think these are the this is the market as of today. So the market is at all-time highs in terms of AUMs. Where do I see growth? Well, this is still a fairly small part of the overall market. I would say around 10 to 15%. But equity funds have been growing. Obviously, international competition is very, very strong here. So all the great players in that space that you know, but taking advantage of tax efficient instruments that we have here, there has been a growing creation of funds, but also of asset management companies that are focused in this part of the market. So giving clients tax efficient exposure to international markets. Mostly it's equities, and you can do that with very small amounts, usually around 100 euros or so. I would say also that the appetite for real estate is here to stay. So I wouldn't call Portuguese real estate cheap, nor in residential, nor in logistics, nor in office. I don't think it's cheap, but I think that's a big trend out there to invest more in real estate, and I think that Portugal has very good characteristics for the real estate markets to continue to perform. Again, the assets they are at all-time highs. I think they are around 80 billion euros when you include all the investment products. And I see growth going forward. I mean, the economy is growing. Is one of the highest growing economies within the European Union. Savings are increasing, and I think so. The asset management industry is in a good place here in Portugal. But I also see exciting things moving forward. I can tell you in first hand that I mean there are pilots happening in terms of tokenization. So having funds trading tokens, funds being tokens, and I see these experiments already taking place, not alone, but in conjunction with other European markets. So I think that this is a technology that is not in a so distant future. I would say this is something that people are already working on, and it will bring significant operational improvements for our companies. And I think that investment experience from our clients will be greatly improved. So I think we're excited. We are in a good place, and it's an exciting and profitable industry in Portugal.
Thank you for that. So I'm sure everyone in the audience, after hearing all of this, is asking one question, how do I invest in these markets? So I'm going to ask each one of you these questions, starting with Luis itself. So Luis, can foreigners, namely from Macau, Hong Kong, or mainland China, invest in BPI's investment funds? And if yes, then how can they do so?
Right. No, absolutely. I mean, international clients they can invest in BPI funds, well, in Portuguese domestic funds, and they can invest obviously in BPI funds as well. I'm sure we have some Asian clients, that's for sure, and Chinese obviously as well. Well, what do you need to do? You need to open account with the BPI, the bank, or with the other distributor, because our funds are not sold only through BPI; they are sold in other distributors, and you just have to comply with identification, anti-money laundering requirements. I mean, this sometimes can be a hassle, and I totally understand this, but this is European rules, so we have to abide by them. But After that, it should be a fairly simple process. All our distributors are Portuguese domiciled. They are supervised by the Bank of Portugal. So I think that's also something of that gives you increased confidence. I would obviously advise you to consult with lawyers. I think it's easier to streamline the process. But what we've seen in the last 10 years, but significantly, perhaps more significantly in the last 5 years, is that golden visa applications, they have been accelerating. They've come from Asia, they've come from Brazil, a significant number. Perhaps in the last 5 years, the new entrant has been US citizens, so US citizens applying for Portuguese, well, at least for a golden visa that will give them fast track to Portuguese citizenship. But in the meanwhile, you can have the residency in Portugal. And I mean, it's a very, very, I think, straightforward process. The requirements, they are standard. I don't think there's any particularly complicated there. It's just going through the administrative work is something you have to do. And I think that the cherry on top is that you only need 500K, and that's an investment. So if the market does well, you will take the benefits of the golden visa, plus you will hopefully be well, richer than you were before. You have more funds than you had before. So I think that's obviously a big plus.
Yes, yes, I'm sure the golden visa is something that we'll be talking about. The same question for Pascoa. I'm sure everyone wants to, since you guys have just started, I'm sure everyone wants to get in early. So Pascoa, same question for you is, can foreigners, namely Macau, Hong Kong, or mainland China, invest in BFAs, investment funds? And if yes, then how can they do so?
Yes, thank you. It somehow follows the same structure that Mr. Luis already shared, where it's pretty much is opening bank account, making sure that the client is compliant with all the regulation necessary to have this account open, ensure that it has custodian account with a broker dealer or distributor in the market, preferably, or ensure that is registered by our Capital Market Commission, and then identify what instrument you want or the client wants to buy. Some of our products, they have to go directly through to BFA. Others, they can go directly to their brokers, and their brokers can indicate other ways that they can invest directly on our funds. But we are completely open, and we have our website where we can also share more information, where we have more details about how investors can invest on our funds. And if they want to invest on a private credit funds, they can also get in contact with us directly, and we can assist to make sure that they have the proper information regarding the fund and anything possible to assist, to facilitate and provide a easier customer experience.
Thank you for that. So a lot of anti-money laundering, a lot of regulations. So the final question goes back to the lawyer. So the final question for today goes to Lucas. It's the same question, Lucas, can foreigners, namely Macau, Hong Kong, or mainland China, invest in Brazilian investment funds, and how can they do so?
They can. Thank you, Brendon. They certainly can. There's no restriction for foreign investment in Brazil. You would have to find the Brazilian institution of choice and open an account, as Luis and Pascoa mentioned, subject, of course, to onboarding and AML rules, depending on background, including country of origin. From a tax standpoint, foreign investment in Brazil is typically taxed at more favorable rates to attract capital, foreign capital. But unfortunately, that does not apply to investors from Hong Kong and Macau specifically, as these jurisdictions are considered tax havens by the Brazilian tax authority. So it's not properly tax efficient to invest from Macau or Hong Kong into Brazil. That is not the case with mainland China. That would fall under the regular rules, but Hong Kong and Macau specifically are considered tax havens by the Brazilian tax authorities. This probably explains why we don't have many investors from these two jurisdictions, although there's certainly Chinese capital in the Brazilian funds industry. As of the end of last year, for instance, China was number 9 in terms of origin of foreign investment and portfolio in Brazil, only slightly below Ireland and the Cayman Islands, whereas Hong Kong was ranked in the 43rd position, slightly behind Mauritius and Guernsey. But if you're in mainland China and probably in Macau and Hong Kong and you want to buy Brazilian ETFs directly from China, you now can, because of a program between the Chinese and the Brazilian government called the ETF Connect program. So this is really an interesting and recent development in this bilateral relations. This program allowed for the listing of an Ibovespa ETF. Ibovespa is the main Brazilian stock index directly in the Shanghai and Shenzhen stock exchanges. So probably you can go directly to one of these stock exchanges and buy a Brazilian ETF. It is also true that now Brazilians can buy in the Brazilian stock exchange Chinese ETFs from the indices of these two exchanges. So that makes bilateral investment easier. You don't have to open an account in Brazil. I don't have to open an account in China to be exposed to these indices. And I guess, there's political interest in deepening these bilateral ties. This will probably be just the beginning of other initiatives that will sure follow. Nothing yet with India, Brendon, but hopefully we'll have something soon.
All right. So thank you, Luis, for telling us about your country. Thank you, Pascoa, for Angola, and Lucas also. A big thank you for enlightening us about your respective countries. Thank you, Miguel, for getting this all together. And a big thank you to each and every one of you for a patient hearing about all these countries and how to invest. And thank you for having me, and handing it over back to our folks from Macau.
Okay, thank you to all participants in section 3 for those cross-border insights. So we'll now turn to section 4, China Economic Outlook. But before that, let me download the new version of the PDF first. Yep, so just give me 5 minutes of time. Feel free to stretch your legs and enjoy the beverage first. Okay, sorry, just give me 5 minutes. Testing.
Okay, done.
So
We're all good.
Let's turn to section 4, China Economic Outlook. Please welcome Mr. Wallace Cheung, CFA representative of CFA Society Hong Kong, who will explore growth trends, sector momentum, and investment drivers for China. Welcome.
Thank you for all your patience. Thank you, CFA Portugal and Brazil, and also thank you for Society Hong Kong. I'm a executive director of CFA Society, and also chairing investment group in our society as well. I know we are running out a bit of time. I'll try to come up with the conclusion first before we go to kick off the short presentations. And basically, we're seeing some slowdown and challenges near term. We all know that. But in fact, we're getting to see more bright spots and more opportunities in 2026, and trying to go through. Okay. So first of all, are we sharing now?
Yeah,
Okay. So first of all, we are seeing some kind of like GDP slowed down to 4.8% nominal GDP in third quarter. If you look at the latest PMI level, which is a very good leading indicator, we're pretty much like marginally staying above the expansion level, which is normally we talk about 50. And November latest PMI, both the manufacturing and non-manufacturing. My own measures, which is not that easy. Try to close down. Hi. Okay. So second, partly because of the deflation, you can call it, or disinflation conditions. If you look at the last like 20 years, we have been suffering multiple period of disinflation or rather like period. And this is one of the longest also. We have 12 of the last 23 months. In fact, we have negative inflation. And obviously there are a lot of reasons we can come up with it, but partly because of the very extremely high saving rate. I think on the right-hand side, you can see a chart coming from Morgan Stanley. You can see China on the same cohort basis. The saving rate is way higher than Korea and Japan. And on the right bottom corner, you can also see like World Health Organization also showing China has one of the highest like saving rates as well compared to all the emerging market countries. So it's not the right time to discuss detail why it's happening, but this is definitely, you can see, especially right after the opening up of the economy after COVID, and I think the saving rate still staying very, very high level. And that will leading to a negative factor. Obviously, government is trying to do different measures, and we can talk about later on. And the other thing is, okay, this is very interesting. On one side, we're seeing export is definitely slowing down, and surprisingly, okay, in 2025, we've been seeing consecutive growth with very strong growth in a few months. But having said that, October is a sharp surprise of dip. Okay, it's official numbers, nothing we can hide. But what I try to counter argue is, if you look at the bottom two chart on the left-hand side, which is coming from United Nations, that in fact China had a high value added export as percent of total export is actually have been on the rising trend, which is around 50%. And you look at the components of the export on the right bottom corner. The electronic equipment is top one, and interesting fact that vehicles other than railway now is 6% of exports, which is like 2024 overall. And you can imagine that percentage is on the rising trend. So we are seeing on an aggregate basis, there could be a lot of moving parts, ups and downs, but we're seeing some very obvious like rising trend in some emerging sectors, which we should focus on when you do your own investment or see any opportunity ahead. But slowing down economy still partly driven by slowdown of export now. And after COVID, obviously, government trying to further redrive the growth and budget deficit. We are not that far off from the United States. We're also having very aggressive spending in multiple fronts, which is successful. But unfortunately, in the last 2 months' time, again, all surprise, the fixed asset investment, partly driven by real estate and partly driven by some of these R&B related investments. I saw some of the breakdown. Also suddenly sharply decline on a year-on-year basis. Okay, there could be a lot of analysis you can come from. I can share with you some of these like securities report, but then are we at an alarming sign? Definitely, we need government to further invest. Are they really trying to grow through monetary policy? I would say yes. In fact, if you look at the central bank asset, has been growing through all the way to this is up to August. up to September numbers. And so we are already in, I would say QE, but definitely has been easing the monetary policy. So can we really like using further monetary policy to drive the growth? I'm personally thinking the potential impact from monetary policy is getting less effective, and partly because of the relatively low interest rate, and partly because I think people are quite conservative in general. So they are still saving a lot of money for conservative reasons, and partly and also you can see that the gold reserve is also very high because I think partly because of the U.S. and China decoupling. So in general, investment sentiment in China are conservative, and we need both government and individuals to be more aggressive to invest in order to drive the growth. So this is a slide we have to skip. I don't know why. Anyway, so we have seen long-term structural challenges, and later on talk about opportunities. So 3 challenges. First, China property real estate market still in a downtrend. I think these 2 charts are easily to copy from wherever places. Pricing going down and listing also is still in a high place, but recently there's some downtrend as well. And I think last week the transaction amount in October also down by around 40%, which actually quite a lot. So we're still in downtrend property sector, which are dragging forces. I don't see any near-term real estate sector will have a very substantial amount of rebound. But we've seen actually some areas in China, like some high-end areas in Shanghai and even like Shenzhen. In fact, we've seen recovery or even rebound of transaction. But in general, we have structural issues in some areas like 3rd tier or 4th tier cities or northern part of China. We're suffering the second issues, Asian population, which is obviously not a single issue only happening in China. It's also happening in Hong Kong, happening in maybe in Macau, and many other developed countries. It's an overall issue because of the education level, other issues as well. And you can see the population pyramid, in fact, obviously it's not that healthy. I think there will be a wave of, I think in the next 10 years time, some organizations expecting every year we have at least 10 to 20 million people losing on an annual basis. And on the right top corner, you can see United Nations have any kind of forecast. Even in the best case scenario, our population will still be down by another 400 million at least in the next 10 to 20 years times. And so we will have a wave of decline of population. We'll recover a little bit for around 10 years, and then another wave of decline of population. So that is the issues, which also a dragging factor of China property. So I mean, obviously, property is something that's must own to many other people. But if you think it is a very good investment asset in China, maybe depending on the area and also your investment appetite. So back to the point about government debt, we actually, there's so many ways to measure it. And official communication, I think official messages from government is around 65% of debt to GDP ratio. And this chart is coming from IMF because all the way, depending on how you define debt and how you classify sort of central debt. Okay, this is complicated. Also my jurisdictions. What we can say is definitely trend is on the rise. Okay, and on the right-hand side, you can see is CIEC, Ministry of Finance. What's happened is part of that actually is used to fund this local government now. And on the right top corner, right-hand side, you can see the amount of fund transfer to the local government is on the rising trend. It's definitely need to support the local government. And also, the annual income earned from units right is on the downtrend. That's part of the reason why local government need more funding. So in general, we have some structural issues. I don't see government can easily resolve any kind of issue in near term. Then what happened is opportunities. We need to find new opportunities. One in near term. In fact, we have seen the M1 has been growing quite nicely until October. Sorry, yeah, October. Suddenly, I think because it is a chart I've done 2 weeks ago, the luxury trends, I think the M1 is still growing, but M1 growth suddenly come down quite sharply by 10 basis points last month, okay? But anyway, I'm still seeing the M1 growth is positive. As we see more M1 growth, that means more people have putting the money in a saving account, potentially looking for investment. If not, they should put it in the M2, okay? Fixed account, okay? And also, the export growth is helping to drive the foreign reserve to grow as well. So, which is generally speaking, the near term, there are a lot of investment, some investors are willing to wait for opportunities. But why? That's the next few slides. Because I believe the next 5 years, there could be new investment opportunities. Obviously, China is a bit different from many other countries. The top-down regime in terms of the driving direction of the investment is very important. The whole lot of media report, no need to cover. I do not need to cover a lot, but just want to highlight a few areas like semiconductors, AI, advanced material. These are very important areas China has been growing and potentially will lead as well. And these are 2 pages of top technologies you have to follow. No need to focus on it. Well, today, I mean. So first of all, new quality productivity. Obviously, still until now, I don't still totally understand this term, but I have to use it, okay? Because everyone talk about it. First term is talk about AI. Obviously, there are so many measures. I can put some very techy measures to measure the efficiency of tokens, things like that. But I like to show one of the chart I have aggregate a few different data sources on the left-hand side is number of data centers. We talk about mega-sized data centers. US and China are leading, and China is catching up. There are multiple data sources, okay? But I have worked on the numbers, which I believe is quite close to 4,500 mega-sized data centers, which also growing very fast. And one of the things is that obviously we have enjoyed relatively abundant amount of low-cost power supply, which leading our AI cost efficiency could be among the best. And the right-hand side are 2 charts to tell you some of the leading models, especially where we're leading a lot of open source data model, which can help us to build more advanced model or cooperate with other countries like the Portuguese-speaking countries as well. So these are something we can highlight to further investment or attract other partners to cooperate with us. Second will be semi. You'll be surprised. Yes, I mean, American steel or US firm, generally speaking, from revenue point of view, from market capitalization point of view, still the single largest semi market in the world. But in terms of the sales of semi equipment, in fact, China already leading the rest of it by significant amount. This is only 2024. And what I can tell you is we have a few major companies in China, like Xinkai, Sai Silicon is also a very leading players, which could be producing domestic semi equipment already. Okay, and semi equipment growth is high. That means a lot of investors in China, including obviously state-owned and private-owned, they're expecting the equipment will provide ROE, return on equity. in the next few years' time. So that significant amount of equipment investments will potentially generate more semi productions. Obviously, not necessarily we talk about TSMC, very high end, because 5 nanometers still very dominated by TSMC, but there is still significant amount of potentially good quality of mid-tier like 7 nanometers and would generate potential new innovation product as well. So this is something I would say this trend have not stopped yet, and there will be further investment in China in semi. Firstly, equipment, and secondly, will be on the chips. And then will lead to the third opportunity is robotics. So obviously there will be a whole lot of different kind of robotics type of forecast. I think more important, look at the number of patents that China filed, which is on the left-hand side. Source come from Morgan Stanley. China is the blue chart and leading all the way. And on the right side, I also quote from the same report, and humanoid robot unveiled by China since 2022 is way more than the aggregation of the rest of the countries in the world. So that means we have a huge amount of potential new and high-end technology that China is exploring to cooperate to the rest of the world. This is definitely clear opportunities and driven by the underlying 15 5-year plan. So final section, market. This is based on I'm only referring to the Hong Kong market. First of all, the equity market capitalization actually already up 36% year to date, according to Stock Exchange Hong Kong. Whereas the Hang Seng Index only up 29%. The discrepancy is coming up one. Obviously, we have more than 85 IPOs already this year. Okay, and second, there are a lot of new placements outside of the Hang Seng Index constituents. So half empty. Obviously, the market is good, but investor takes time to digest. And also a lot of IPOs now we're getting into what we call the lock-up period expiry. There will be a lot of new flooding of papers coming out to the market, something you have to bear in mind. So interesting the fact that is these two lines normally will move synchronized. Sometimes the total market will grow faster, but if going too fast, it can come down. So we may be getting into that zone. Second, obviously we are analysts. We need to look at the valuation. This is a chart of the P multiple and dividend yield of Hang Seng Index in the last 3 years. In general, the last 3 years, the peak PE, which is like right before decoupling, we talk about Hang Seng Index had been trading at around 15, 16 times P multiple. But right afterwards, this is only around at lowest, which unfortunately I missed that bottom, is 8 times. And now we're around 13.5 times. Obviously, the peak is around to January level, but now we're 13.5 times. Obviously, that's a bit much. If you look at the last 3 years average, which is around only 12 times. So, and also look at the yield, we're trading around 2%. Why not buying the AMP money market fund, right? With a little bit downside ahead, with more risk profile, I think time for investors to enjoy happy Christmas or Thanksgiving next week. So I would say, what about the 5-year plan? It looks exciting. In general, it will provide some good long-term growth. But having said that, since the announcement of 15 5-year plan on 20th and 23rd, that period, I think we are generally is under a downtrend. If you look at that history, 1 month downtrend, very likely for sure, that is the small sample, but generally speaking, the 3-month trend may not be that good, especially in the previous 2 times of the 5th-year plan. So we may be a little bit more patient to wait for the second half, right after the 3 months. And this final comment, economy is slowing down. China is handling the structural problem. I don't see any significant major breakthrough, say in 2026. And hopefully the 5th-year plan will be a key driver in second half. In particular, they're trying to also to help up the consumptions. I would suggest to focus more on the very key sectors. Obviously, the market will be very. Recently, I think American created a new term called K-shaped economy. I would say the market could be K-shaped as well. So those leading sectors will still be the top part of the K, but those sectors which are a little more consumer focused or real estate, maybe still at the bottom, may not have any significant rebound in the time soon. So that's it for me to share, and hopefully you enjoy it, and happy to take any questions if you have.
Thank you, Mr. Wallace Cheung, for sharing your valuable insights on China's economic outlook.
We'll now open the floor for a brief 5-minute Q&A section. If you have any questions regarding today's presentations, please raise your hand now. For our visual attendees, you may submit your questions via the chat function.
So feel free to ask. I'm going to check on the chat box again and see.
Miguel.
Miguel,
how are you?
So I suppose there's no further questions. So maybe as our event draws to a close, we wish to thank you, every speaker and attendees, once again.
For our final message, it's our privilege to invite Mr. Redfield, CFA, Vice Chairman of the CFA Hong Kong Macau Subcommittee, to deliver the closing remarks.
Okay, thanks everyone for coming. Okay. So thank you everyone for joining this inspiring discussions regarding the investment fund landscape in Portuguese-speaking world. So we are about to have a new law. So next year, the new law will enact. So the new law not only aligns us with global modern framework, but also open doors for innovative structures, which will provide more and more partnership and opportunities. So tonight, with all the honorable expert and keynote speakers sharing their excellent insights. So my personal key takeaway is that expertise, talents, partnerships, and strategy cooperations are well established within the CFA communities and societies. So which we are ready to contribute back to the society, to the city. So I'm sure that CFA Institute, CFA Society, Hong Kong, Portugal, Brazil, and CFA Língua Portuguesa stand ready to support Macau every step, all the way to the success, building the human capital and networks that will turn potential into prosperity. In closing, congratulations again and appreciate to the lawmakers and professionals who have made this possible. Together, with the momentum and energy, we can help our communities to grow substantially. Thank you. Let's make it happen.
May we invite Mr. Wallace Cheung for some closing remarks as well?
No, it's just one final comment. I really appreciate the leadership of Miguel and support from all the colleagues in Portuguese-speaking countries, although I don't speak any Portuguese at all. And I just want to say this is definitely is wonderful event, wonderful great night. But I'm seeing the end of this webinar is the beginning of our further cooperation, Promo Macau, to grow the financial industry in the GBA and to cooperate further with the Portuguese-speaking countries. We are getting close to the end of the year, but I'm seeing more potential opportunities for us to cooperate together. And hopefully, I will meet like Miguel in person sometime somewhere, in 2026.
I hope so.
And thanks to all the hard work of the committee members like Raphael, Jonathan, Rainbow, Dixon. They have been contributing significant. Again, we are all volunteers only. Hopefully, you understand. Thank you.
So thank you all for your attention and participation. We wish you a productive day and we'll see you next time.
Obrigado a todos pela atenção e participação. Desejamos a fazer dia produtivo e até a próxima.
So that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Adios.
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 Tchau, tchau.
Deus.
Deus.